This is in response to Dr. Paul Krugman's article in the New York Times on Friday, August 21st, 2015. Debt is good. Now, the first thing I want to say about that, I want to applaud Dr. Krugman for bringing this up, which is very important. But remember how the Republicans are always talking about how your family can't be in debt. You have to live paycheck to paycheck, or you have to pay your debts, etc. It's different with governments. It's always been different with governments. And for them trying to conflate the fact that governments should be acting just like a regular household is just utterly ludicrous. Now, one of the things he points out is that Rand Paul said the other day, gosh, the United States government has been in debt since 1835. Whoop-de-doo-da-day. That's the way it is. And guess what? The England, or United Kingdom, has been in debt for over 300 years. I believe it's been over 350 years. And there's a growing consensus that we need to have debt. And the question is, we need to have more debt, especially than the debt that we have right now. Question is how much, but why do we need more debt? Well, there's a couple things. Number one, as I said, households don't run the same way as as governments. Now, let's just take the case of Donald Trump. When he wants to build a casino, which just recently went into Chapter 11, let's go into, a casino, and he needs $1 billion for it, it doesn't come out of his pocket. He goes to the banks and he borrows money with some collateral that he has and his good name, etc. Then he takes that $1 billion and he makes the casino or whatever. Then they start to get a return. He pays 6%, 8%, 10%, whatever it is, 1% interest on the money that he borrowed. And he's hoping to make 30, 40% on that. And guess what? Trump doesn't always play by the rules either, because he's very notorious for not paying his contractors and subcontractors, and very notorious, for returning pennies on the dollar when they want to go to court to get their money back. Now, governments aren't going to do that. Trump can do that, and that's, he considers himself a good businessman. But the point is that governments need debt to function, because with that debt that we are progressing, we're moving forward, we're using that debt to invest in things that will help us in the future. So when we're going to invest $1 billion or $10 billion or $50 billion for our bridges and highways and roads, we started putting that money in, we're not going to see the investment day one. We're going to have some backups maybe. Bridges are going to be closed. But the long term is that we're going to improve our infrastructure so that things run exceptionally more smoothly and that goods can get to market faster, and that this is a good place for people to have their businesses in certain locations where infrastructure is working actually well. And again, what we're seeing here is that where it was radical, where people were saying that it was radical to have so much debt, and now we're saying, hey, wait a second, no, that's not the case at all. What's radical is your austerity measures. Because right now, those austerity measures are hurting the United States from moving forward, because we need to invest more, so we need to borrow more. And guess what? Because the interest rates are so low, we can borrow on the cheap. We can borrow cheaper now than we could in a long time. Remember when Reagan came into office, I remember I was selling computers then, a $250,000 computer. Has less power than this phone here. It was costing, let's say, it was $250,000, and I think we were leasing them at like 24% interest rates. So, right now, money is cheap, so to speak, in terms of how we can borrow it. And what is it going to do? It's going to provide the things that government needs to do to make the country run efficiently and effectively. That's what government is all about. Efficient, effective, hopefully transparent also. And that's how it should go. Now remember, these deficit goals have been screaming and yelling since 2008 that we can't borrow any more money, that we're so much in debt, that we have to get down the deficit, that our grandchildren are going to have to pay our debt, and great-grandchildren. Well, as Rand Paul said, we've been in debt since 1835. We've been through a number of wars. We've been through a number of recessions. And still, the quality of living in the United States is exceptionally good. So I'm not quite sure why we shouldn't increase more debt. And one of the bad things about the fact that we have, not the debt aspect of it at all, but when the deficit scholars went in and said all of this, that the government couldn't borrow money and all that other stuff, remember, we had the Great Recession in 2008, 2009. And that drove interest rates down. And the deficit scholars were saying, oh, no, you can't borrow any more debt because interest rates are going to scream upwards. They're going to go so much higher. All right. But at the same time, when that was happening, the only safe place in the world, or the safest place in the world for people to put their money, was in the United States. So we have all this money that's available to us at low interest rates, and should interest rates go up a little bit? Possibly a little bit. Should it be manageable? Yes. But the big reason why it is important that there should be interest rates at a little bit higher amount is because if we go through another Great Recession, and guess what? China has gone downhill real fast in the last month and a half. The United States lost, 500 points the other day, which was only like 3.5%. I remember when I was a stockbroker. Yeah, I've been multi-functioning person. On that Black Monday, it went down, 500 some points, which was 22%. Yesterday's, Friday's, was only 3.5%. But if interest rates aren't at a certain level and we have a big slowdown, a big come down, a big Great Recession, we can't drive the interest rates that much lower, whereas if they're at zero right now. So we need to have this type of stuff going on. And, it's what the deficit scowls is that, the people with austerity, the people with deficit, they're screaming for all this stuff, and it's not working. It's not working. The way to do is to move them aside, to understand that they're not the way of the future, they're the way of the past. Remember, a lot of these people are making a lot of money for themselves personally and helping out people who are exceptionally rich by screaming this stuff on talk TV. But the underlying aspect of what the economy is that we have a very strong economy. We have the strongest in the world, that people are sending their money to us and asking that money to stay there at very little interest rates because it's the safest place for it to be. And guess what? We can use that money to invest in the economy, to invest in our infrastructure, to invest in education, to invest in our junior colleges, to invest in work programs. We need to do this to move on. This whole idea of debt and austerity, that is passé. And we have to move on. We have to get going. As one talk show host would say, let's get to work.